Ladies and gentlemen, coming up next, get ready to indulge your legal curiosity with a unique blend of knowledge and entertainment on Legal Candy with attorney Candice Colucci. Each week, she unwraps the sweet secrets of the legal world, covering a wide range of topics from property insurance claims and personal injury to national and Florida law hot topics. Guests will include industry whistleblowers, industry experts, and sweet surprises. Get ready for a flavorful journey through the legal landscape. And now, let's dive in with Candice.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Legal Candy. This is attorney Candice Colucci, and I thank you guys for being back here with us. So remember, this is a show where we are trying to give you those sweet little secrets of the law to just better empower and to give you all that knowledge you need of information. So that being said, let's get into today's episode. So just a kind of reminder of what happened last week on the episode was we had Shaun Markwardt here, and we have him here again today because the episode we ended last week, and it was just so good and so full of juicy information that we felt like we had to pull it over to another week, another episode. So we are so happy he is here today. So to remind you guys who he is that Shaun used to work for the insurance companies. He used to be an insurance adjuster. So we were talking about the insurance claim process. So if you remember our law firm, we specialize in property damage insurance claims, personal injury, and immigration, but we represent the insured against the insurance company to make sure that they're fully paid for their claim. And so with that whole entire process is we're fighting against the insurance company to make sure they're getting more money. That's usually what happens, or to make sure that they paid adequately. And some of the people that we're usually fighting against are the insurance company's adjusters, because the insurance company hires their own adjusters, and their job is to determine how much they believe the value is worth. And so Shaun was working for the insurance company for years until he started to see the insurance companies commit fraud. So Shaun is here. Shaun, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to be here.
I'm so excited that you're back. And we had a great opportunity to speak afterwards. We've spoken a bunch of different times, but we talked afterwards, and we just talked about just how thankful we were that you were willing to come and share your story about what you have experienced and any of that potential kind of backlash that you have been kind of going through. And so the fraud that you had seen that you talked about last week was that you're working for the insurance company, and there's times you said that you saw that they had underpaid claims when they should have paid more. But the most kind of glaring thing you had seen is that you were writing estimates for the insurance companies, and they were changing your estimates to lower amounts and then giving that to the insurance company with your name on it. And so it was making you look like you were potentially, saying something that wasn't true. You were undervaluing their claim, and you really felt like, I couldn't stand that. And so that's why you came forward, in essence, correct? That's what we were talking about last week.
Absolutely correct.
And so now what I want to talk about is what ended up happening after you came forward. So once you realized, okay, this is something I can't do, and you had said that, because you have a family and you feel like your integrity was on the line there. And so you finally came forward and questioned it. And then at any point in time, did you actually end up getting fired, or did you just separate yourself from the insurance company? You were working with an independent adjusting firm, but what ended up happening afterwards?
Okay. Yeah. So after, I contacted attorney Stephen Bush, who I certainly trust, and we were able to, make known what it is that we found. Obviously there were a lot of things and emotions going through myself, because being an adjuster for over 20 years, that's my livelihood, and I feared repercussions as far as being what's called blacklisted, where the firms no longer give you work, and I really was, but it's a story that had to be told, because for one, it's true, and insurance companies cannot be allowed to commit fraud against their insureds. So what I did was when I left the area I had the firm cut me off of claims, and I came home and I took my public adjuster's test, and on December 1st of last year, A+ public adjusters was born. And so now I do a lot of public adjusting as well as a lot of appraisal work.
Absolutely. So you talked about Stephen Bush, who is a dear friend of mine, attorney Stephen Bush. And so he was one of the first attorneys that you looked for, because what was your fear about standing up against the big bad insurance companies? You're like, hey, I'm seeing this. I believe it's fraud. And I want to start by just kind of saying to everybody, we're not saying that every single insurance company commits fraud. We're not saying that. Our job is to educate people that are listening in to just know that it can happen from your own insurance company, and that you should be willing to question everything that kind of takes place. Something doesn't seem right. You can always look to an attorney or a public adjuster who could look over anything that's happening for free a lot of times and give an opinion that says, hey, this is right or wrong. So when you felt like you needed to go to Stephen, what do you think was the reasoning that you decided that you wanted to go and speak to him? Was it because you were afraid of what the insurance company was going to do?
I was, because, first of all, as you stated, I can only speak to what I witnessed with one insurance company. I can't speak to any other insurance company, but I wanted to speak with Stephen because, first, I know through his reputation that he is as ardent of a protector of insureds as you and I are.
Yes.
Right? And,
yes, he does. We have done some good fighting together, me and Stephen Bush, against the insurance company. We don't care who it is. If you're treating people wrong, we are willing to stand up and fight. So that is absolutely his reputation, and he is, and we both stand behind that. So yes, so you look to him.
Yes, I did, and I had a lot of things on my mind as far as what I feared. I feared harm to my family, of course, because the insurance companies in general it seems like they have an endless supply of resources, and I'm just a guy, right? But I saw what I felt was fraudulent activity. Something had to have been done, but I didn't know really what to do. So when I spoke with Stephen, he got me into he got me in touch with with Doug Quinn, who runs the American Policyholders Association, and I will say that the APA, the American Policyholders Association, it's the only organization in the United States that collects reports of insurer fraud, so insurance companies, committing criminal fraud, and they investigate those cases, and if they see evidence of a crime, then what they do is they package the evidence together and provide it to the public fraud prosecutors. Right, so it's really good, and it's a nonprofit organization. And like you, me, and Stephen, they are protectors of insureds as well. So they now it's worth noting that I believe that they provided this what they viewed as a good case. They did a preliminary review with their investigators and determined that that there was fraudulent activity being committed by the insurance companies. They provided the case to the Florida fraud investigators, I believe in June. And so almost 6 months to date, no arrests have been made. So in
June of this year, June of 2023 was when the organization APA submitted the information, kind of packaged it all together and submitted it to the state of Florida.
Correct.
Yeah. So you were talking about APA. Doug Quinn, another person we love. He is just a relentless fighter, protecting the entire insurance process. So the insurance company wants you sometimes. Some of them want you to believe that there are these two sides, and there shouldn't be, right? We all should be on the same side, helping the insured, the innocent homeowner, property owner, get paid what they are owed. And insurance fraud, which people have heard, several times, is a felony. You can go to jail for insurance fraud. And as far as I know, almost all of the insurance fraud, because I did criminal defense for a while when I first started, it was always against the insured, which is the property owner. They were usually, the insurance company was accusing them of burning down their own house, which unfortunately, and sometimes it does happen, over exaggerating and fraudulently claiming things that weren't damaged. So that's where you were seeing a lot of that fraud. And so just like you were saying, is that APA, the American Policyholders Association, which your homeowners, you can join that for free. Property owners, you can join that association for free. And it is a just amazing organization that is making sure that whoever is committing fraud, whether it's the insurance company or the policyholder, that those people are being held accountable for it. So I haven't seen, I don't know, Shaun, have you ever heard of an insurance company being charged criminally for them committing fraud?
Never.
Yeah.
I do know that Doug himself, and what caused him to be involved with the APA, he was a victim during Hurricane Sandy himself. And I don't want to speak for Doug, but he says regularly that he became involved with the APA because he could not stand by and let insurance companies do this to anybody else.
Yep. And do this, meaning, unfortunately, a lot of us have been through that claim process like Doug had gone through. It's egregiously underpaying their claim and leaving a homeowner to figure out where are you going to come up with the rest of the money, even if it means that you have to cash in your savings, your 401k, which we've seen that. I'm sure, Shaun, you've seen those things where you've seen that behavior and where it's just so disappointing and sad because you've trusted your insurance company and then they don't pay you. They don't pay for the claim. So that was really, I guess, where Doug's motivation came from and why he is so adamant about fighting for this. And this organization, the APA, they go and they lobby to the government to kind of change the laws that are better protecting the insureds. And so they do a lot of that while they're investigating the fraud, right?
Yes, that's correct. They have met with a number of attorney generals in a variety of different states in order to, discuss this collective issue with those attorney generals as well, because attorney generals, they're the biggest prosecutor of any state. I'm not a lawyer, but that's my understanding. So.
No, absolutely. So I will give you guys a legal disclaimer that everything we say here is not personal legal advice, that if you've got any questions, you should reach out and speak to an attorney, and nothing creates an attorney-client privilege. So we're going to make sure we're protecting ourselves while we're giving you information so you can better protect yourself when it comes to insurance claims and potentially that fraud process. So as you were stating that you said that now you have now switched sides, so you're working for the insurance company, and based on what you were seeing by their behavior being so egregious, were there times when you were working for the insurance company that before you finally came forward, that you just felt horrible about something that you were seeing?
There were. It was, most of the time, it was a lot more subtle than what I observed in Florida by working Hurricane Ian claims. I know that there was a hail claim at a company where I was a staff adjuster for, a full-time W-2 employee staff adjuster for, and there was a hailstorm where there was a house that was kind of on the outliers, so the hail wasn't very large, and I felt like it was damaged by hail. However, through the review process, you can clearly see, and this was probably about 15 years ago, you could clearly see that the damage to the gutter guards was there. And, a lot of insurance companies, especially the larger ones, have re-inspectors. So in that particular case, they said that there was no damage, and I disagreed. I had a young family at the time. My family's not that old now, but it was a very young family at that time. And, so speaking up would have gotten me fired. I feel like
it would have gotten you fired.
Right. And so I didn't. But it wasn't every claim. It was just every once in a while I would I would question that, the goings on of the decision making.
And I'll tell you that on being an attorney for the policyholders, those insureds, I have seen just some of the most just soul-wrenching situations. And I question, how can some of these adjusters who work for the insurance company sleep at night? And I think it's because they're looking at it objectively, and they're looking at it as this person is just a number, a claim number. And I think they've maybe separated themselves from the fact that this is somebody's life, their health, their future. And it really does kind of blow my mind, because there's times when I find myself just telling the insurance company adjuster, like, listen, between me and you, I have been to this property. I have seen the mold growing inside this house. I have seen the homeowner have health problems, and everything they own has been destroyed by water, and the smell is just a deathly smell. I need you to pay more. And then their answer to me is, that's all we're paying.
Yeah, that's something that you cannot describe on the news.
Yeah.
You can't describe the senses, the feeling. Mm-hmm. Even in hurricane, especially devastated areas, the level of depression that you could physically feel as an adjuster or just a human being can be unbearable. You can't say, you can't. It's difficult to describe just the smells of what that is. So it's very difficult.
It is, and when you talk about those smells, they're really difficult to explain, but because there's some areas like with Hurricane Ian that hit down south, that was so close to the water, and there was so much flooding. Those storm surges were massive. I mean, they were. I mean, there were some homes that had 15 feet of water that were inside of them, but it made the areas covered in just dead fish and just like feces and vile. The smell was really, truly hard to compare it to anything else. And what was interesting about that was that how dangerous it became afterwards. Like, once you learn, obviously you've seen it, but once you learn about how detrimental mold is, like, that completely changed for me. Like, if I go somewhere and I think I smell mold, I'm like, whoa, stop. Because obviously you've learned a lot about mold too. And mold can be really dangerous. It was so dangerous down south in some areas that the experts that we work with who deal in mold and contaminated areas were saying that there was so much in the air that elderly people should not be returning back to their homes. Had you seen that down south when you were down there? Like, you could smell it in the air still, right? When you were down there right afterwards?
Absolutely. And that's the smells is just not something that you ever forget.
And we still have insurance companies now telling us that they should just clean it, and it's fine, it's livable. And I'm just like, you have no idea the type of contamination in that water. And let's talk a little bit about that contamination, the categories of water. So explain to me a little bit about what happens with, like, regular water that comes into the house, that comes in through a roof, or water that comes in from a flood, that contamination. What kind of explain that to us?
Sure, absolutely. If you have a leaking roof, it's not good water at all. I mean, I don't suppose there's any good water, but it's not good water. But it's not devastating. If you have flood waters come in your home, let me back up. So you have water coming in from the roof. That means it's coming in from rain, right? Mm-hmm, so you have rain, and you might have some contaminants from the roof, either the shingles or the tile or whatever the roofing composition is, some dirt and things like that. And then you have water coming onto the insulation and drywall in your ceilings. Okay, when you have either a surge or some type of a body of water that creates through a storm that creates a storm surge. I don't know the number, but there are a multitude of contaminants that are in there. I mean, you have contaminants from animals. Animals carry diseases. Yeah. You have snakes that come in, and you have to be careful if you're walking through debris, because water moccasins, I mean, and other poisonous snakes, are obviously very harmful. You have just like you said earlier, feces, fish. There could be fish in your house, and they'd be rotted in a short period of time.
Oh, we saw it all over down south. They were inside the homes, dead fish, just sitting like on their floor or on their cabinet tops, just sitting there.
Yeah, well, in Florida, alligators is a thing too, right?
Yeah.
So you have just that, and it's just it can be a quite dangerous situation.
It absolutely is. We were down south, right? We rode the hurricane out, as we were talking about before, is that me and my team, we were there just to make sure if anyone needed any assistance. We had emergency services. We were there with a couple of different companies. And there were areas we were wading through where the water was really high, and we're walking through it. And there was no phone service, but when we were checking in, like I think it was like the next day or something, that was when someone from my family let me know, and they were just like, we had sent them a video that we were walking through all this water, and we were kind of showing them what was happening, and they were like, "Did you see the shark?" And I was like, "Shark?" And we realized that there was a shark that had literally come on shore, and somebody had seen it in like the backyard. Like the water had raised so far in one of the neighborhoods that literally there was a shark that was just swimming. And I would never have thought about it. The water that we were going through, it's mucky, it's dirty. We have no idea what's in it. And then come to find out that not far from where we were at, there was just a shark just swimming in the water. So it's definitely very dangerous. Just in and of itself, like just being really careful after the storm. But it just goes to show all of the contamination that's in that water that ends up potentially coming into the home. So
absolutely.
So we're definitely going to, I think we've got a commercial break that we possibly need to go to. So we've got to get a break from our sponsors. So just stay with us. So we'll take a little break here, and then we'll spend some time kind of explaining what does a public adjuster do and how can you better protect yourself if you're ever dealing with an insurance claim. So stay with us. We'll be back here shortly.
This is the TAN Talk Radio Network.
Welcome back to Legal Candy. We are still here with Mr. Shaun Markwardt. And so he was here telling us about the insurance company's fraud. Remember, not every single insurance carrier commits fraud, but some of them do. And when he discovered that they were committing fraud, he felt like there was something else he could do besides to stop working for them and to switch sides and work for the insureds. So we were giving kind of some of the examples of fraud. And fraud is really a misstatement of a fact that you tell somebody else and they rely upon it to their detriment. And when I was working Hurricane Michael, I'll tell you one of the most heartbreaking stories, because we are definitely boots on the ground. I feel like in order for you to be a true advocate, sometimes you have got to see it, feel it, and hear it. And that makes a huge difference, especially as an adjuster, as you being on the field and seeing it. And then trying to deal with an insurance company who their desk adjuster who you're fighting with hasn't seen it, smelt it, or felt it. There is seriously a disconnect there. But one of the instances that I had seen after Hurricane Michael that hit the Panama City area in 2018 was there was an elderly lady. She was an African-American lady, the sweetest lady, was church-going, and we were doing these city hall meetings, and we do them after every hurricane. So what we're trying to do is educate the public about what their rights are. And then also getting them with vetted contractors so they feel protected, so nobody's taking advantage of them. So we get together with attorneys and public adjusters and contractors and roofers and mitigation companies, and we do them kind of at schools and gymnasiums. And an elderly woman came in, and she had a grandchild with her, and she stood in line because at this time there were so many people who were coming out who were just so scared, so sad. They hadn't been paid by their insurance company. They didn't know what this is going to mean. Most of the people in that area were retired. They lived paycheck to paycheck on a fixed income, and the insurance company had not paid them enough, and they were living in a house that was dangerous to be in. And so she waited in line, And then she came up and she started talking, and then she started just crying. And this is the reason why I became an attorney. It was stories like this that did it for me. So she's crying. And what people don't also realize is the aftermath that happens after a storm, just because of the fact that there's no electricity. And so she starts off by telling the story that after the hurricane hit, her daughter was in the hospital, and her daughter was ill, and she was on oxygen. And after they lost electricity, they ended up, for a little while, they had a backup generator, and then they had to move her from one hospital to the other. And in that process, she ended up dying. So her daughter died right after the hurricane. She lived in a mobile home, and now she had instantly inherited 3 grandchildren that were now living in this mobile home with her. Her husband had passed away, and the insurance company, her house was absolutely damaged. I mean, the roof had been peeled off, half of it. Water had just poured into the house. The entire inside of the house had gotten wet. All of her contents were destroyed that were in it. And the insurance company, I think at that time, had issued her I think it was like $4,000 or $3,000. The entire mobile home was destroyed. And so she was crying because she had no idea what to do. She had called the insurance company. They told her, well, we sent somebody out there, and that's what they determined that the damages were. There's nothing else we can do. You know, we're relying on our adjuster's report, which is what you're talking about. That was what you were doing. That was your job, to give that report to the insurance company for them to decide what they were going to pay. And she was so sad. And so she had been calling over and over again. And then they had finally told her, well, we'll give you a little bit more money. This was something else they do, and I'm sure you've seen it. They'll offer to pay them a little bit more money, and then what else will they say? If you sign a release, right?
Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
You've seen that. You've seen that where they're like, sure, we'll give you a little more money if you sign a release. And disclaimer, right. I've said this to anybody. You should never sign a release unless an attorney or like potentially a public adjuster who gets to stand in the shoes of almost an attorney has reviewed this. Because you don't know you're signing away all of your rights. So they offered her a release, and this is what they said to her. They said, we'll give you, I think the numbers were another $2,000 or something. We'll give you another $2,000. Her whole entire home is destroyed if you sign this release. Or if we give you a little bit more money, we'll have to salvage your title and take your mobile home. That's what they told her. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So salvaging title is something that, because a mobile home is actually a vehicle, if it's determined that the home is damaged and destroyed to a certain degree, a mobile vehicle is, it can become salvaged title. That just means the title is technically salvaged and you're not supposed to be selling all of those things. But they told her it meant that they were going to come and take the property. And so she was wondering, what is she going to do with these 3 children she had? And the fact that now the insurance company has not paid her enough. The home, she said the home reeked as mold, that she's having a hard time breathing. And now she's a sole care provider. I think she was 70 something years old. You can ask my team. I was like, stop everything here. I mean, we took our team, we packed up, we went to her home. I think we got to her home at she was an hour and a half away from where we were at. She had driven an hour and a half to us. We drove all the way out to her house to see the damage. I go with me, an attorney. We also go with a roofing contractor and a mitigation company, and also an expert when it comes to damages. And we saw this home, and it was just devastating, the amount of damage and that feeling that they had scared her so much, and they had lied to her. Not only did they lie to her about how much damage she had, and they told her some of the damage, a lot of the damage was pre-existing, but then they had lied to her about the way salvage title worked, that they were going to come and take the mobile home from this woman who had just gone through the most devastating thing. She lived through a hurricane, and then her daughter dies, and she takes these 3 children. I mean, my heart right now is beating so fast because the anger that I felt at that time, and the heartbreak that I felt while I was sitting with her grandchildren who were still young, as she was going to have to raise them in a house that they by themselves, by the way, had pulled up the carpet because the carpet was soaking wet. They had pulled it up. The grandson had. He was like, oh, I just didn't know what to do, so I just started yanking at it, and I pulled it all up. So there was no floor. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it before, and you've seen something similar to that, and it's hard to describe how it makes you feel, and really the injustice, right? That's really kind of what it is, the injustice.
That's exactly what it is. I was actually speaking with an insured that I attempted to help in Florida last year with Ian, and it was one of those situations where I estimated for all of the repairs and things. Then it was the estimate was reduced to less than their deductible.
Oh.
When I spoke with them yesterday, they had to sell their house because they couldn't afford to do the repairs. And they're a young family with kids. And that is an absolute despicable act by an insurance company.
And we see that a lot, where they don't have enough money to repair, so they sell it at a loss. And they have to walk away from something that they've put a lot of times their entire life savings into. They've raised their children, and unfortunately, when you're dealing with some people from the insurance company, is they could care less. They couldn't care less. That's really it. They literally are just like, and
right.
I mean, the type of. I tell people I fight every single day. I work 7 days a week. I'm never not working, and that's because the day that I stop seeing that type of injustice to people, then that's probably when maybe I would stop. But it's like every single day I turn around, and there's not enough of us, right? So you're a public adjuster, so let's talk a little bit about what exactly that you're doing now and talk about your company. But there isn't enough people out there to help the insureds. And unfortunately, with all the new changes in the law, there's even less. So tell us about your company. What's your company's name?
Sure. My company's name is A+ Public Adjusters.
A+ Public Adjusters. I like that name.
Yeah. And we are licensed in multiple states with public adjusters that work for me, and what we do is we protect the insured. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. That's why I'm in business, because I had enough seeing what I saw in Florida, and enough was enough. So I decided to form the A+ Public Adjusters, and now what we are is we are the insured's representative against their insurance company. One of the big problems with insurance claims is that desk adjusters, right? So you have a field adjuster like I was, and then you have someone in a nice air-conditioned office that's never picked up a hammer in their entire life.
Their entire life. They've never picked up a hammer in their entire life. And what are they doing?
Exactly. They're trying to dictate how repairs should be performed because they have this set of guidelines that was written by the company that they work for, an insurance company. And they go by those guidelines because, frankly, they don't know. Most of them don't know any better. There are some that have a lot of knowledge, but most, there's such a high turnover rate. There are times where I get a claim where I'm representing somebody. I had a claim earlier this year. There were 3 different adjusters in a period of 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. And how long? 2 weeks?
It's ridiculous, because they can't keep enough warm bodies.
Why do you think that the turnover is so high? Because anyone who's dealt with a claim will tell you that it's not uncommon for you to go through 3, 4, 5 adjusters on one claim. What do you think is the reason for the turnover?
In my opinion, I think that the reason is because not everybody is cut out for this business. And what a lot of people do is they will see dollar signs and say, "Well, I can do that," and then that actually happen. Then they actually get to do that and realize, "Oh, I really can't do that," right?
Do you think a lot of them are having like issues with their morals or integrity? You think that's happening to them? That's maybe one of the reasons for some of that turnover?
Could be.
I would hope so, right? You would hope that that's where it's that maybe they're having some feelings underneath there and being kind of guided in a way that's different than where they feel like they should be. That maybe that's the reason why they stop working there.
Yeah, I truly hope so. So what we do is, is we have an agreement with an insured, and we do commercial and residential properties. And once we have the agreement, we meet with the we meet with the customer, and we of course establish a really good rapport, because I've seen that people go through this thousands of times, right, in my career. And so we meet with the customer, and then we walk the property, and also we review their insurance policy, because most people are not very familiar with what is actually in their insurance policy, because my experience has been is that most of the time the insurance company isn't going to explain to you everything that is in your policy. So part of what I also do is a policy review. I review the policy, and I discuss what coverages the insured has under the terms and conditions of their policy. Then we write a fair and accurate estimate, because we are not bound by quote unquote guidelines. Okay, so we write an estimate and we submit it to the insurance company, and then we go to battle for the insured.
So you don't have any of those guidelines. We talked about those guidelines before, that when you're working for on behalf of the insurance company, you would have guidelines, which would say, here's where you have to be in this realm. You can't go outside of it. And so it's got to feel freeing now to be able to fight them to really protect the insureds without any limitations, right?
Well, it feels really good, because now I am able to handle claims like I used to back when I started, right? Because the industry has become increasingly more difficult throughout the last 20 years or even more, really. But yeah, it is. Look, I tell people all the time, this is the hardest money that I've ever earned in my entire life, and I know it's not about money, but it's absolutely worth it, because now I get to truly help people to get to back where they were before the claim or before the damage occurred.
Yep. Yeah. No, and when you said it's the hardest money, I try to explain to people how interesting it is what we do. It's a fight every single day, right?
Yeah. It is.
Isn't that crazy? I feel like there's not even one single time that I feel like they go, "Hey, Candice, listen, we messed up." You know what I mean? They don't go, "Hey, you know what? We really should have paid them more." Every single time I try to tell my staff when I'm really training them and explaining, I go, unfortunately, a lot of the insurance companies, their attempt is to make anybody who's asking for more money feel like they've committed fraud, they're not entitled to it. And even us who specialize in this, and you too as a public adjuster, even though we know could you imagine what the feeling is when an insured tries to do it themselves? The frustration. I have never seen such frustration in my life, and just disappointment and just sheer sadness when they try to do it themselves before they hire any assistance. They're just like, I promise I'm not trying to steal from them. I'm like, that's because that's what unfortunately, some of the companies are making you feel that way. But it's a fight every single day for every dollar. It doesn't matter if you're asking for $1,000 more dollars or you're asking for $100,000 more dollars. They're going to make you feel like you're not entitled to it. And it's just good to let the insureds know, anyone listening, you have a claim, you can reach out to Shaun, who's a public adjuster. And Shaun, how do you get paid?
So my fee is a contingency fee, similar to how I'm assuming that you charge as an attorney, right?
Yes.
So it's a contingency fee based on the amount of the additional recovery, in addition to what they may have already compensated you. Therefore, if an insured does not get paid, then I don't get paid.
Yeah. So and what is that percentage usually kind of is around?
Yeah. Usually it's in the 10 to 20% range. It depends. I know that there are certain regulations in different states, and we, of course, do whatever whatever we're regulated to do. Okay. In the state, I know, like in Florida, due to a hurricane within the first year, I think it's 10%. I know Texas is 10%, but other states are a little bit different. So, but generally speaking, it's 10 to 20% depending on how much has been paid and what the state regulations are.
Yep. And I can tell you, because we've been doing this long enough to be able to make that opinion, is that it is so very much worth it. I think that scares people a lot of times because we also work on contingency. We don't get paid unless you get more money. The same thing with public adjusters. They will look over your cases for free. Shaun is someone that you can reach out to if you want him to look over anything. He'll look over it as with no fee to you, and he'll let you know if he thinks it's a case that he could take on. And then if he doesn't get you any more money, you don't have to pay him any more money. But at least you know somebody who worked for the insurance company, who knows those inside secrets, is going to be able to protect you. Because we're at a place right now where I literally tell people where they're like, well, should I talk to the insurance company? And I have no problem saying, listen, I did criminal defense first, and I don't care if you're innocent and you believe you're innocent. You should get an attorney to better protect yourself and your rights, so you just know what those are. Because you can say something innocently, like use the word flood because there was a bunch of water, and then you're accidentally now told your insurance company it was flood, and they've denied it because they don't cover flood, and it wasn't flood. It was just water that came in through your ceiling that kind of made a flood pooling. So, Shaun, we are almost out of time. I can't even believe that because you just have been such an amazing resource for us. We are so very, very thankful for all the time that you've done. So at least tell everybody how they will get into contact with you.
Absolutely. So if you have a property claim, whether it's commercial or residential, you can go to my website and contact us through there, which is appahelp.com, or you can email me personally at Shaun, which is SHAUN, at appahelp.com.
Okay. So what are some of the tips, those inside little tips from you working there? What are some of the tips that you would give a homeowner for handling an insurance claim?
Yeah. First, I would, due to the condition of the insurance environment in our country, I would highly recommend that anybody that has an insurance claim reach out to a public adjuster. Mm-hmm. And yep. Candice, you spoke on this just a second ago, and there are certain trigger words that insurance adjusters are trained to acknowledge or to notice, right? For example, Candice referenced the word flood. Mm-hmm. Another word is backup. So, policyholders and homeowners and business owners are honest people, generally speaking, right?
Yep.
So in people's honesty, sometimes they say something that is true, but they say it in such a way that it would be a trigger word for an insurance adjuster to bring a coverage problem into question. So what I do as a public adjuster is I ask my insureds that if the insurance company calls them, explain to them that, hey, I mm-hmm. am represented by a public adjuster. Here is his or her name and phone number. Call them. Have a nice day. And the reason why is because I don't want people in their honesty, and their lack of insurance acumen to create a coverage problem when it really shouldn't be one.
It's very true. And the example with the flood is really the one I hear the most because I see denials that are based on that a lot of times. And then I also see things where when the inspection takes place, the insurance company adjuster, if they don't have anyone representing them and they're just trusting the insurance company adjuster will sometimes say, do you have damage in your attic? They'll ask the homeowner, where's your damage? And the homeowner doesn't truly always know where all the damage is, right? Because when you come out there as a public adjuster, or like when our firm comes out there, we're doing an intense look and we know where to look. And we also have moisture meters so we can figure out if there's water behind walls and those kind of things. So if you tell the insurance company, oh no, I don't have any damage in my attic, my roof isn't leaking, that's a huge one, right? They'll say my roof isn't leaking because they don't see leak marks on their ceiling. But as we know, your roof could be leaking. It just hasn't gone through all the layers of potentially of the roof. It hasn't gone through your decking. It hasn't gone through the insulation yet. It hasn't gone through the drywall yet to be visible. So now you've told the insurance company, and they've written it down, and trust me, they wrote it down. They wrote it down and told everybody that you said that you didn't have any leaking, you've got no interior damage, right? And then they will use that against you. And so I'm definitely of the opinion, and it has changed a lot, especially recently with the insurance company's behaviors, is that we've really said, do not talk to your insurance company. Hire somebody to represent you. Now, if the insurance company, if you handled the claim and they've given you enough money and you think it's enough money, great. That's a good day, right? But if you're questioning anything, come to us and ask those questions. Say, hey, can you look over this? And this just isn't making sense, because I've just been really, really disappointed, especially recently with what I've been dealing with as an attorney, litigating these cases. And now we're fighting over the changes in the statutes that have now taken away things like the attorney's fees that an insured used to get. And have you seen any difference on your side yet? Are you feeling that? Are you worried about what's going to happen now that if you hire an attorney, you may potentially not get those statutory attorney's fees, which meant where the insurance company had to pay your attorney's fees? Now it all has to come out of the claim. That's
correct. So what Florida what the legislature has created is that even when a policyholder wins, they lose, right?
Yeah.
Because so much more comes out of comes out of what they need to be paid. So sometimes they have difficulty even doing the repairs sometimes in order to get what is right. And it's not fair. However, I am an optimist. I think that the legal climate and the legislature, I think that they change really frequently in the state of Florida. So I am hopeful that it will come back around and they'll start doing the right thing from the legislature standpoint. But until then it's up to people like you and me to fight the fight.
Keep on fighting every day. I'm just like,
you live right and do the right things.
It is.
And we get things accomplished.
Absolutely. And what Shaun's talking about, we're talking about, is called statutory attorney's fees. And so this used to be one of the very, very few areas of law. And this is the reason why I got into this law, but being able to help people and then finding out that there was statutory attorney's fees, which meant if you had to sue your insurance company and you won, which means they had to pay additional money, the insurance company had to pay you the amount that you were owed for your claim. And then they had to pay your attorney's fees, which is the way it should always be. That means a court, the system, the process had determined that this insurance company, who should have represented you and paid you adequately, didn't. And so instead of an attorney having to taking a percentage of your money, they were able to charge it to the insurance company and they paid it. And it's the way that it should be. And just recently, as of December 2022, there was a law signed by Governor DeSantis that took away that right that we had for decades, for so long. And it was the way that it really should be, because now, just like you were saying, even if an insured now sues an insurance company and they win, they lose, because now the attorney has to take a percentage of their money. And if they have a public adjuster, they take a percentage too. So we're going to keep putting that pressure. And hope what I really think happened, and I'll just, because I know we're about to have to head out, and we're going to talk more about the legislation and the laws that are supposed to be protecting the insureds, the policyholders, but they're not. We'll talk about that next week. But I really, really think what happened is it was just a lack of knowledge on behalf of the legislation. I think they really are panicked and we're wondering, what are we going to do about insurance rates? And they're getting information from insurance companies that are saying that, oh, well, it's all the attorneys, it's all the public adjusters. And we know, because we're in it, that's not it. It's not it.
The insurance lobby, well, I don't want to make a blanket statement, but the insurance lobby, we know how much they contribute to politicians. So,
yep.
And the problem is that there is a big problem with this in Florida, but it just doesn't seem like any of the decision makers have the right answers. And it's not, in my opinion, it shouldn't be that hard to lock a few legislators and a few attorneys and public adjusters and not leave that room until they figure it out.
I know that's what we were hoping. We were truly hoping for that, because like I said, I think what's going to happen now is hopefully there isn't another storm, because people who had anybody who had a claim before December 2022, they're still grandfathered in under the old law. So we're able to still get attorney's fees for Hurricane Ian, Hurricane Idalia that just happened, and any other of those damages. But going forward, if there's any new claims that are after any of the claims that are new from 2023 going on, they're not going to get attorney's fees, and that's going to be very detrimental. So we're hoping we'll be able to continue giving that information to the legislation. We're going to give a special thanks to APA for all of the hard work they do, and to you, Shaun, and welcome to the other side. That's really where you're at now. So you get to live freely and for the right reasons, and I cannot wait to continue working with you. You are now a colleague and a friend, and to continue fighting for the insureds together. So like I said, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being here, and thank you for fighting for the right reasons.
Thank you. All right. We'll see you later, Shaun. Thank you.
Thanks.
And thanks, everybody, for joining Legal Candy. We will see you next week with some more juicy secrets to unravel the world of law.